Okay, thank you everybody for tuning in for the second installment of the Entrepreneurship Resources Dreamers at Work workshop. We had a really wonderful informational session 2 weeks ago, and this is a follow-up to go a little bit more into detail about what entrepreneurship resources look like. Again, we have with us Kevin Omana-Mendoza from the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition, as well as Deymi and Maria, a Metro alumna, as well as a current student, who are going to share their experience about starting their own business. So with that, Kevin, I'll let you take it away.
Alrighty. Let me know when it's good for me to share screen and take over, Gregor. I think you might have to stop sharing briefly for that. Or, yeah, there we go. All right. So it looks like I'm presenting. I see the red border. Hopefully everyone can see. Last week we talked a little bit about the general nuances around what it means to go into business for yourself. So some of the differences between what an independent contractor will look like and what an employee will look like, as well as other aspects which, include protections under the law or lack thereof, how to make sure you have an equitable contract. And towards the end, we heard of a great opportunity, and Gregor, I believe, still has access to those resources. For those of you who didn't join last week, you're more than welcome to look at the presentation. It has been recorded, or just reach out to Gregor directly. Because we have a guest this week, I'm going to go a little faster than last week. We only have 13 slides to cover, but I really want to make sure that our lovely guests can have enough time to speak since they have gone through this process themselves. So let's begin. So first and foremost, a friendly reminder, when you go into business, there are several types of businesses you can do. One of them is sole proprietor. When you do a sole proprietorship, you work under your first name. So your business is under your name. If I were to become a sole proprietor, in theory, I could go under Kevin Omana-Mendoza, LLC, or any type of variation that uses that. You can also work under a trade name. So like our lovely guest today, Chica Snacks, you can work under a name that usually has LLC, LTD, or a different aspect of that. If you do something that's incorporated, that's really not sole proprietorship. So you want to be careful with the acronyms you put at the end. Staying away from INC is usually a good go-to if this is your first time. If you have the opportunity to incorporate down the line, that's awesome. Otherwise, it's usually good to either go under your own direct name or a trade name that you can register. To figure out which names you can use or you can't use, you can always go to the Secretary of State's website, and when you're registering your business, you'll be able to look these up. You want to be careful with how you put your name, just so there's no copyright infringement on existing trademarks, as well as no confusion on other unexisting names with similar stuff. So for examples, if I wanted to do a business that had tamales and I'm the sole proprietor, I want to make sure that first and foremost, I look at what names are available. I could do Kevin Omana-Mendoza's Tamales or other variations of that. But let's say I want to do something like Tamale Kitchen. Many of you know that in parts of Colorado, namely Thornton, Westminster, the greater Arapahoe area, there's already businesses called Tamale Kitchen. So if I were to try to register it, I either would get a message from the Secretary of State saying, hey, that doesn't exist, or it could go through and in a few days, Tamale Kitchen would give me a cease and desist and I'd have to change my name. So you want to be careful with that. What are some pros and cons to sole proprietorship? Well, one of the biggest pros is always a low startup cost. At a minimum, you only have to pay the $50 for the registration, and every year the cost of renewal is slightly lower. Setup is pretty easy. You do articles of incorporation. You go through the Secretary of State's website. Afterwards, you'll go through the IRS to request an EIN number. If you have a Social Security number, it's very easy. If you don't, you can always request an ITIN to get an EIN. Depending on what documents you have, your ITIN process can take anywhere from 14 to 20 days. Usually, if you're going to get an ITIN for the first time, you want to go to a licensed tax expert. Those are the only individuals who have the ability to help you with the process. You could attempt to do it on your own, but things always get murky. Never go to a notario or any individual that doesn't have tax licensing to do that, because then it gets murky and issues can arise. And the biggest one is The losses you make in your business can be deducted from your personal income taxes. So if I start a business this year and it's in the red and I actually make less than I put in, I can cut those losses off in my taxes. And if I owe any money to the government, that money is actually deduced from that. Some of the cons, though, are personal responsibility. You are, as the sole proprietor, you are liable for any debts that are incurred by your business or other liabilities. When you start your organization, depending on what you want to do, you always want to get insurance, because if you don't get insurance, those liabilities directly fall under you. And of course, you have to pay income taxes on your profits. Because you're going into work for yourself, you don't have an agency or another individual who's paying those income taxes or withdrawing them from your annual salary. So at the end of the year, you'll have to pay that. Usually it's a 20% of your total gross income. So you want to be careful with how you spend that money. If you make a lot of money and then you spend it all when it's time for tax season, you will be in a heap of trouble. Are there any questions? All right, so I use some of these acronyms, but let's go into detail. So what is an LLC? Limited liability company is a separate legal entity that has two big documents, as an articles of organization and operations agreement. Both of these are filed with the Secretary of State and or your banking agency when you open up a business bank account. They're very easy to do, and there are a finite number of templates out there for these. As we start doing business and walk-in hours with the UndocuHub and with Immigrant Services, we'll work with you on how some of these articles of organization operations agreements look. There are also other resources available at a statewide level. The University of Colorado at Boulder has an entrepreneurial clinic, and usually, as long as you're within an hour of driving distance from Boulder, you are able to access those resources. Because of the pandemic right now, they've opened it to anyone in the state. So if you want to start this organization and you think that you need a little bit of support from some attorneys or law school students to figure out the legal nuances, that is an option. Pros and cons to the LLC. You limit the liability of the amount you invest. So with an LLC, you can separate personal assets from company assets. So for whatever reason, there's malpractice or an issue happens, or let's say because we don't know what life is like in 2020, there's a lawsuit, you can limit what people can sue you for and what they can't. You're not personally responsible for any debt or other liabilities that come with the company, and you get to choose whether you're taxed as a partner or as a corporation. So when it comes time for tax season, that really will let you figure out the structure. Of course, you don't want to do taxes on your own. If you do an LLC, you definitely want to go to a tax provider. Some of the downsides to that, though, is that you do need to set up a fair amount of legal paperwork to do that. Gregor and I can always walk you through how to do that. However, there are some aspects that we are limited in just because of the legal nuances of starting a business in the United States. In addition, you might need to have some assistance with your articles of organization and your operations agreement, just so we can make sure that it's bona fide and that there are no loopholes or other aspects that could potentially damage you in the long run. And as well, the other part is you have to maintain an adherence to what an LLC is. So you have to make sure that on a yearly basis, you're keeping everything up to date. Otherwise, you could lose that status. And depending on your articles, you could lose some of those assets. How do you form an LLC in Colorado? Well, first and foremost, your LLC has to have the abbreviation LLC. It has to have the name limited liability company, or it can be something different such as limited or LTD, as long as the implication is that there is a limit. That is the important part. You have to make sure that your name is different from others in the state of Colorado. So again, going back to the Tamale Kitchen example, I wouldn't be able to do that even if I added Tamale Kitchen LTD, Tamale Kitchen LLC, or Tamale Kitchen Limited Liability Company. It's not different from the existing Tamale Kitchen, and it doesn't warrant enough for that. So you want to make sure if someone has your name, you could do something where you do synonyms for that, or you try other variations, but it has to have a difference. And you can always go to the Colorado Secretary of State website. At the end of this, because this is the end of the whole presentation, you will have access. So this nifty little link here, you will be able to click on. Now, Once you've gone through that, you do have to file with the state. So you'll file the articles of organization with the Secretary of the State. In order to do that, you have to provide your office address, the registered agent's name and address. That can be you or someone else, depending on how you set up the corporation. So for example, if Gregor and I go into business with each other, either Gregor or myself could be the registered agent, and one of our addresses would be on there. The same thing, if Gregor is the registered agent as well as the person forming the LLC, then he can put that on there. The difference though with these two is that I have to be in that second one because I'm forming it with him, so my name has to be on there. Finally, you have to figure out if your LLC is member managed or management managed. Those two are going to vary on how you do this or how many individuals are involved. Member managed just means that everyone has an equal share, has equal voting power and managing power. Management managed means that certain individuals are allotted this. So in our example, if Gregor and I do a member managed LLC, both of us have 50% stake in it, so both of us have equal power. However, if we do management managed base, then either Gregor or myself will be known as the management and we'll have the power in that. The other individual still has the ability to have conversations and have some type of power, but it's not as strong in the management as it is in the member. So really, when it comes down to this is, if you do it with more than one person, figure out how you want to distribute the power. For individuals who don't have DACA or who qualify for asset but are going into business for themselves, I always recommend for your first time around, do a sole proprietorship. That way you can do this on your own. You're able to manage all the aspects. Like I said before, if you're in the red, you're able to write that off. If you're going to start an LLC, that's totally fine and acceptable. Just remember that you want to be careful. For those of us who don't have DACA or asset, we are putting ourselves in a degree of vulnerability with this. So if we have other individuals there, then we have to be conscious of who, as the old saying goes, who you get in bed with. Once you do that, you're going to execute the operational agreement. It's not required in the state of Colorado, but it's always good business practice to have. It protects you and your partners depending on which of the styles you go. It defines the rules that apply to the business, and it also helps you avoid personal liability. So in essence, what an operation agreement does is it clears out the gray room, and it allows you to let individuals know this is how you operate, this is where your limits are. And the biggest thing is it allows you to define what you're going to separate from personal or professional asset. After that, you're going to file a periodic report every year with the Secretary of State. This is just to maintain status. Usually the cost is not as large. So if I remember correctly, it cost you $50 to set it up and $25 to renew this. It might have changed this year, but historically it's never been the same amount. You pay the initial and then you pay a lower fee when you're updating your status. How do you set up your business? Well, the biggest thing is, depending on how your business is going to do, you're going to want to invest in equipment, get liability insurance, figure out some marketing services, so graphic design for your logo, marketing strategies for flyers or how you're going to advertise yourself. You want to make sure that you have a system that allows you to track your business records and finances. So you might either purchase a QuickBooks system or another financing system. If you're starting out for the first time, you don't have to pay for things, but you can always use Microsoft Excel. There are a lot of beautiful templates out there for first-time individuals. You just want to make sure that you have a concrete system when it comes time for taxes so you can demonstrate all of this. The worst thing that could possibly happen is you're in the red, and when you're filing your taxes, you trigger an audit. Audits are terrible. The IRS, you know, we've all heard the stories. We've all seen the jokes and the memes. You just don't want to be on their side. So make sure that however you manage your finances is something that's sound for you. There are some people who do old school books. You can definitely do that. I don't have anything against it. They sell some pretty cheap at places like Office Depot, Office Max, Staples, all those good areas. The last thing you want to do, though, is you want to make sure you create a standard contract. This contract is something that you use with everyone. So for example, if Gregor and I go into business and our business is a consultational service for first-generation students, we're going to want to create a standard contract that says, this is what Gregor provides, this is what Kevin provides, these are the fees and the length at which we'll do this. So our mentoring will only be in increments of 2 months. So for 8 straight weeks, this is what we do, this is how it's broken down, and the relationship of the parties involved. So this is Gregor's role, this is Kevin's role, and this is the client's role. You always want to make sure that your standard contract doesn't deviate You never want to create special circumstances for others because liability-wise, it could void your insurance, and it also kind of makes things hard. We all know the family members and the friends who always want a discount. If you do that, just make sure you don't deviate from the standard contract. Always make sure that you can modify things in the contract. So for example, with fees or length of time, you can usually leave those blank and then you fill them out as you're working with individuals. Or you can say it's always going to be a flat fee of $200 for X amount of services. One thing for all of y'all to know is that if you're going to go into consulting work, the average rate of consulting is $100 per hour. And at the same time, as a consultant, you're only there for a short period of time. So $100 per hour sounds great, but realistically, as a consultant, you shouldn't be there more than 6 months. If you're there more than 6 months, it could seem a little sketchy to the IRS. So when you make this contract, you want to be able to have justifications as to the length of the periods. What's the law in all of this? Well, first and foremost, with employment and immigration law, the Immigrant Reform Control Act of 1986 makes it illegal for someone to knowingly employ unauthorized workers. The key words here are knowingly, employ, and unauthorized. For those of you who don't have work authorization, it is not illegal for you to be able to do contract work. However, it is illegal for you to be able to call that work employment. So you're able to do contract aspects and you can be an independent contractor, but you're not an employee under any of the purposes for the IRS or the Department of Labor. And this is where you can say things. The other part that you need to know, though, is federal statute of the U.S. Code. It prohibits any individual or entity from knowingly engaging an authorized individual to provide services as a contractor. This is the part where, as an LLC, the burden isn't on you to prove that you have legal working status in the United States, and the burden is never going to be on you to demonstrate that. It's always going to be assumed that when you enter contract work or you do contract work with individuals, that everything is in order and how you do that work is in compliance with federal statute as well as immigration laws. This is the part where you have to be careful. For example, if I had an individual, we'll call them Raul, just because I have a really good friend named Raul. But let's say I know Raul, and let's say that I know that Raul does not have work authorization status. Let's say I know that Raul cannot knowingly be employed. If I said, hey, Raul, I want to hire you, but we're going to do it as an independent contractor. You're still going to be an employee, and I'm still going to engage with you as an employee. This is a direct violation of both IRCA and the statute because, one, I'm employing someone unauthorized to work. It doesn't matter what I'm calling it. When I give Raul the tasks and the responsibilities, they will see that it is a means of employment. And the other part is I'm knowingly engaging with someone who I know cannot work. So when you're doing your LLC, you do want to be careful with the ways in which you talk with individuals. It's okay for you to talk about being, asset, a dreamer, whatever labels and terms you want to use. You want to be careful, though, because the biggest issue is you don't want to get into a contract with someone who you knowingly know cannot prove that you have the ability to do the work you're doing. So to keep it short, if you don't have work authorization, you are still able to do independent contracting and certain types of income accrual for yourself. The burden of it is always going to be on the employer, the individual who hires you. This is why I strongly recommend against anyone doing work with government agencies, because in government agencies, the burden is on them, and they do go through the proper due diligence to ensure that. So any private, nonprofit, or other based organizations are decent for you to do, but any government-based, and this is at any level, it's at federal, state, municipal, you want to avoid those types of work, just because you could find yourself in that tricky situation of federal statute if they know that you are a recipient of deferred action who no longer has work authorization, or if based on personal experiences as an activist or as a leader in the community, that individual knows that you cannot legally work. So to keep it short, be careful with how you contract and who you contract. Just know that the burden is not on you. I know this seems scary, but it's also very doable. You just have to make sure that when you're setting up your articles and you're setting up your organization, as well as how you market yourself, there are no places for you to violate either of these. I wish we could go into more time for these, but they're very complex. This is where, if you're curious as to where you fall within these, I would recommend going to that entrepreneurial clinic at CU Boulder or any employment attorney who offers free consultation. What's a W-9? Well, this is what a W-9 looks like. If you're an individual who's going into work for yourself, more than likely you'll be filling out a W-9 instead of an I-9. With the W-9, really, it's the way in which the IRS can charge you for those taxes that you make on whatever income comes into your company. So any means of revenue or any means of income that is bleeding into your company, the W-9 is what you have to fill out so you're able to do this. Any person who is a citizen or U.S. resident alien, any partnership, corporation, company, or association created in the United States, an estate other than a foreign one, or a domestic trust. Individuals will either fall as citizen or resident alien. This doesn't just mean lawfully permanent resident. This is any individual who resides in the U.S. regardless of status. So everyone who does this and does work in the U.S. does have to file a W-9. It's important for you to know that if you ever do contract with someone and they want to give you an I-9, you let them know W-9 is the form you have to do. I-9 is for employees, and as we've mentioned before, contract workers are not considered employees for a multitude of reasons, and a lot of that comes with you're not afforded a lot of the same rights as an employee, and you also have more freedom than an employee. 1099, this is another form that you'll have to do. 1099 really is one of the types of work that you can do. There are a lot of people who do go into independent contracting, and for the purposes of their salary, they'll be given a 1099. You want to make sure that when you're filling this out, you properly do it with the tax representative that you do your work with. So just in short, the two forms that you want to do are going to be the W-9, the 1099. Here are some resources. Immigrants Rising is launching their own UndocuHub of sorts. They call it UndocuHustle. They provide a lot more webinars and information based on the type of support that you want to do with entrepreneurship. You want to make sure that you pay attention to those. Department of Labor is always a good thing to have in your back pocket. If you feel that you're being mistreated as an independent contractor, or you feel as though you're being lied into the way in which your contract is being set up so that you take an employee's place, you can always file a grievance with the Department of Labor. You're not protected under the same provisions that we covered last week, but that doesn't mean you can't file this. The Boulder Chamber of Commerce is a really good resource. It allows a lot of individuals to find some great resources around setting up businesses, proprietorships. I also recommend the Denver Chamber of Commerce if you're going to do things here. The Small Business Development Center of Boulder, again, is a really good resource. They provide a lot of free information, and the Latino Chamber of Commerce in Boulder County is also a good resource to go to. With that, I believe I'll be shifting over to our lovely presenters today. But before we do, are there any questions? And again, for some of you who are on the call today, if you don't feel comfortable asking those questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to Gregor individually or myself. Email, text, phone, all that good stuff works for us. But if you have questions now, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, I'll pass it over to our next presenters.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kevin. As Kevin said, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll make sure that our contact information makes it into the chat box for the meeting today. And with that, we're going to move on to Entrepreneurship Showcase. So we have some fantastic guests with us today, both a current MSU student and a recent graduate who are going to talk a little bit about their experience starting a business. So with that, Deymi and Maria, take it away. What is Chica Snacks? And maybe you can give a little bit of background about yourself as well.
Okay, perfect. Hi, guys. So I'm Deymi. I am a recent MSU Denver graduate. I graduated with a major in public relations and a minor in advertising and promotions, as well as a micro degree in digital marketing. And I'm Maria. I'm the current student in MSU Denver. Right now I'm in my second year, and my major is computer science with a minor in mathematics. Yeah, and so we are Chica Snacks. We are very recent. We actually just started Chica Snacks about 2 months ago. And basically what we do is we take regular Americanized candy and we like to put some spice and flavor into it. We have a special blend that my grandma brings us from Mexico about every 2 weeks or sends it over to us. And we use chamoy because we are Hispanic. We love anything with chile on it. We eat our food with chile on it. So we were like, you know what? You know what sounds really delicious? Some freaking peach rings and some chamoy and that spice that my grandma got us. So we decided to try it, and we let some of our family members give it a try as well, and they fell in love with it. And we would eat that as snacks. And one day I was just sitting there going through TikTok, and I realized that people actually sell these types of stuff. So I did some more research, and I found out that most of the companies that sell chile candy is mostly in California and for example, Las Vegas, places like that, Texas, but not really in Colorado. So I started brainstorming with Maria, and I told her, hey, do you think we should start selling these? And Maria was like, you know what, we should just do it. Let's just see how it goes. And I was like, well, I'm kind of like, I felt really intimidated. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but I was like, you know what, let's just give it a shot.
But then she backed out. She posted it like once on Facebook, and then she deleted it 2 minutes later.
Because I was scared. I was scared that, you really put yourself in a vulnerable situation sometimes when you share these ideas, and it can be intimidating. So after having a talk with Maria and her telling me that we should definitely do this, we decided to give it a go. We didn't think it was going to be anything big. We didn't even think it was going to be what it is now. So we posted it, and literally from day to night, because we posted it like at midnight, people were blowing us up. They're like, oh my gosh, like, what are you selling? We need to try it. And so it started a lot with family and friends on Facebook, but it just started growing. So our first batch, we literally didn't even have a name. We didn't have anything. It was just chile candy. And so we sold out, I think, like within a couple hours. And so we decided, we're like, you know what, maybe we should try to do this. But obviously we didn't know anything about the LLC or anything like that. So we felt intimidated by all of the paperwork. But luckily I have a really good accountant, and he is amazing. He's the one that helped us with a lot of the paperwork. And then we started brainstorming and thinking about, well, what should we call this? Like, because then we started looking into some of the, I wouldn't say competitors, but definitely people that already have their businesses established and everything, and looking at their names. And I was like, I want something that is, because we're female, we're a female operated business. I want to show that because we're totally feminist. So what should we name it? And so I started thinking, I was like, Chile. The 3 first letters of Chile is CHI, and then the first letters of candy is CA. And I was like, Chica, and Chica's girl, so Chica Snacks. And so that's how we came up with our name, which everybody always asks me, they're like, why did you name it Chica Snacks? And most people think it's just because it's female operated, but actually it's because it's Chile candy. So we always like to tell that story. But yeah, that's pretty much what we do. We sell Chile spicy candy. It's pretty delicious. There's a lot of there's YouTube reviews now that you can actually take a look at, and we can try to share some with you guys where people are reviewing our candy, and yeah, people tend to like it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that really, really wonderful and super interesting insight into your business and how it came about. We have a couple questions for you, but you mostly addressed, you addressed certainly some of them already. Are there any questions from the audience right away for the founders of Chica Snacks? Okay, one question I had for you both, what was sort of difficult or maybe unexpected? So not necessarily difficult, but what was different than you expected it when you started that with that midnight Facebook post? Sort of what did not develop as you had expected it, or what was challenging?
Oh my goodness, I think everything. Well, definitely we underestimated the power of the internet. the power of the internet is everything in this century. We didn't expect to have as many shares or comments or likes as we did, which was a little overwhelming because I feel like we weren't really prepared for that. But we just kind of had to go with the flow and just do what we had to do and get things rolling and get those orders out and make people happy. We've both been in the restaurant business for a very long time, so we really understand customer service, which I think is something that's great about Chica Snacks. We try to treat our customers like people and try to show them we're not just a business. Like, we care about what you think of our candy. We want you to have a good experience, and it's not just about the purchase. So I think definitely that was something that we underestimated, the power of the internet. And then also maybe how important it is to keep everything on track and keep yourself organized. I wish we could have just maybe started with more organization in the beginning and took it maybe a little bit more serious. That way we wouldn't be scrambling later on in the future trying to get organized while we have all these orders. So definitely try to have a plan, a business plan. I think that's what we were missing, a business plan. And because I'm very good at like marketing and all that stuff and design and let's do this and let's do that. But when it comes down to a business plan, I kind of felt lost. And so, but that's what YouTube is for. That's what school is for. So you can definitely learn a lot, and just talking to people can definitely be a good learning point as well.
Great, thank you so much. And just a quick reminder to the audience, Kevin shared some really fantastic resources that can certainly help with things like sample business plans, but then of course YouTube, right? There's going to be a lot of really helpful information there. Thank you for sharing that. Now, considering how you certainly ran into some situations where things were challenging or maybe felt overwhelmed, what were some sources of strength? What were the things that kept you both going?
Well, to be quite honest, I am a single twin mom, and my girls are my absolute world. And even during a pandemic, I kind of felt lost because I did lose my marketing job because of the pandemic. So it all seems so bizarre to me. Like, how are you going to start a business while there's this pandemic going on? People don't have money. People are out of jobs, like you yourself don't have money. So how are you going to do all this? And I definitely think I just kept my daughters in my mind and kept telling myself, like, you have to do this. You have to make money. You have to feel passionate about this. And which I do, like, I love candy. It's my absolute favorite. But definitely just having my daughters remind me, like, I'm doing this for them and I'm doing this for us in our future. And the best thing that I can do is invest this time and money on myself so that it can pay off and I can take care of my children. It definitely pushed me to extents that I would have never even guessed. I've always considered myself a hard worker and a dreamer and legit would do the absolute to try to make my dreams come true. So when you're in need, you just need to throw yourself out there and do it and pray that everything's going to be all right. And as long as you put in the work, you do things right, I believe you'll be successful. What about you, Maria? What do you think?
Honestly, I think you kept me going.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Yeah, because honestly, I don't know anything about that stuff. I just barely got into like the college field and stuff. I just got into college, so I've just been relying on you.
Well, I'm here to inspire you, sister.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much. What are some pieces of advice that you would have for other DACA and undocumented students who are maybe thinking about starting their own business?
I think I would just do it. Whatever it is that you're thinking, you just go ahead and do it. Don't let your immigration status stop you from succeeding, from accomplishing your dreams, Like I said, the best investment you can make is on yourself and your dreams and your goals. I feel like people will buy your product. People buy a lot of things, even if you think your idea is crazy, like just do it. You just need to put yourself out there and do it. And I think for sure the hardest part will be the beginning, just getting everything situated, getting all that paperwork. But the more research you do and try to prepare yourself, the better. Just do a lot of research, try to educate yourself on things. If you feel overwhelmed, just take it day by day, set little goals every week. of things you want to get done. And I don't know, it's really exciting. So once you get started, you'll feel the motivation that you like never thought you could. You'll just want to do more and more and more. And I think that's what's great about entrepreneurs. They just always want to keep learning, always want to keep working. And that's why I respect them so much for sure. So I think definitely as a undocumented student, just keep working hard because we're already hard workers. We've already been put in this position where we have to work a little extra hard to make some of our dreams true because we're not documented. So I think every undocumented person has that spirit of being a dreamer, of wanting to get things done, of wanting to do things for yourself. So just go out there and do it. Like Nike, just do it. What about you, Maria? Do you think what do you think?
They should do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maria's
That's
the
what you
woman
said.
that has very simple words. I'm definitely the one that speaks the most.
Fantastic. Thanks again. What are some maybe other last tips or suggestions that you have for the group to think about, to know about, and yeah, just some things you'd like the audience to know?
Definitely, you don't want to live your life thinking, what if? You know, you want to be able to do things you want to do. And just, my mom always told me, Mexican mothers, she always told me, shy money isn't ever gonna get you anywhere. So no tengas vergüenza, like échale ganas and everything will be okay. All the paperwork, all that stuff, it can get figured out. You can fill it out, but as long as you have that will and motivation and that dream and that drive, you are unstoppable, like legit unstoppable. The world is yours. Mm-hmm. And then my accountant guy, his name his last name is Reza. That's what I call him. I can also share some of his information because he was great at explaining to me what the paperwork meant and what we should be doing. He did a lot of the research with me because I completely felt lost. Like I knew nothing about this. So he's been a great resource for sure. And of course, all the stuff that all the resources that Kevin listed, you guys should definitely take a look at that because that's super helpful.
Deymi, how did you come across the accountant? Was it sort of word of mouth, somebody that you knew already? Did you find them somehow?
So he usually does my taxes. And the way that I found out about him was through word of mouth. He's a very professional guy, and he just, even with my own taxes, just regular things, he would, because I ask a lot of questions. I think that knowledge is power, and the more I know, the better. And so I would sit there and just talk to him like being annoyed, and he was doing my taxes and be like, okay, well, what does that mean? And so when I called him with the idea that I wanted to start my own business and how I should go about things and what paperwork I needed to fill out, he was very excited and ecstatic to show me what he thought. So I really appreciated him.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Let's open it up maybe for the audience if there are questions from those who were able to tune in real time.
Okay, so there is one question in the chat. First, how do I buy Chica snacks? What can MSU Denver do to better support student entrepreneurs?
Hi, Nolan. Or Bessie, you can buy Chica snacks by just shooting us a message on Facebook. I guess this is another part that's very hard. I wish we could have more time because we're working on a website right now, but like being a single mom and I have another job to try to get more money to invest in Chica snacks. It's been keeping me really busy. And Maria, she's a full-time student, also has another job. So it's kind of
website should look like. So that's also part of the reason why it's taken so long.
Yeah, so right now we're taking orders just through our Facebook direct messaging and then also our Instagram, which we're growing pretty rapidly, thank goodness. But you can just shoot us a message with your first and last name and then a list of the things you want to try, which I think we have 7 to 8 gummies right now. And then let us know if it's a pickup order. And then what can MSU Denver do to better support student entrepreneurs? That's a good question. I think, for example, there was like, what's her name? Lynn Winter. She shared a list of alumni that have businesses now, so I can try to see if I can find that list. But you can go in there, and there's actually businesses that are owned by MSU graduates, and they even have discounts for MSU students. And I was actually going to see if we can get Chica Snacks on there and maybe get people like 10% off or something. But that's definitely one way that you guys can help. And even, you know, it doesn't cost any money to like, share, and comment on pictures, follow them on social media. So I think you can definitely help like that.
You got it, Deymi. I'll make sure you get added to that list.
Thank you.
So I have a question. Thinking about my little sister and myself, have there been any challenges when it comes to this, your what is the word I'm trying to say? Your business. There you go.
Honestly, there have been many challenges. You just have to learn how to communicate, you know. Like in the beginning, I did start off by like funding most of it since she had no job and she was a single mom. And I was working like almost full time. So I was like, you know what, I got you. I'll help you fund your dreams and stuff, you know? So then at some point I was just like, dang, is this really even benefiting me? Like, what am I doing? Because I also started getting greedy, I guess. And so I didn't realize at the time till she told me, like, hey, this is both of our business, you know? And I was like, hey, you're right. So I guess that was one of the challenges, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Working with family can be a blessing, or it could be the worst thing you've ever done to yourself. With my sisters, I have a really, really close connection with her. Like, I can definitely talk to her about some of the issues or the problems. So having that communication and learning to separate business from like family stuff is everything. Because you don't want to bring, let's say you get in a fight with her in the morning, and then now you have to work on the website, and now you're pissed off at her. So the website's going to look crappy because you guys are not communicating, you know? You just really need to learn to communicate. Leave whatever it is outside of the workspace out of the workspace, and just see each other as colleagues and work with each other, definitely.
Yeah. And then just think about it like you're helping your sister, you know? Like you just want to see them succeed, you know?
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Great. Any last questions for Deymi and Maria before we slowly come to an end?
Well, going off from the workshops, the last two workshops that we've had when it comes to professional dreamers, what is something that you wish you knew before implementing a business?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I think something I wish I knew before all of this was, I
think that everybody has their own opinion. Like, of course, you know that people will talk, you know, but you never really consider how much it would affect you till it actually happens. Because we have had some people, like, with all the shares and comments and stuff, it does get around to, like, everybody. And sometimes people aren't the biggest fans of, like, DACA-owned business, you know, so they have their opinions for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I remember we ran an ad on Facebook maybe about a month ago, and this guy felt the need to take it upon himself and comment, why are you advertising to me? I don't eat this crap. So you really just have to learn that not everybody is with you, but you definitely just want to keep a positive mindset and work towards your dreams, you know? So you can't please everybody, you know?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin, was there anything that Maria and Deymi brought up that kind of got you thinking to maybe also share sort of with a group or highlight or react to or respond to?
Yeah, I think that they both touched on some great points when it comes to social media. You know, earlier in the presentation, we talked about marketing, And, you know, one of the plus sides to doing sole proprietorship is it's low cost entry. But with all of social media out there for you to market, you know, it shouldn't be a hindrance. I know a lot of colleagues who I attended school with in Fort Collins at CSU who went into sole proprietorship, and they did basic things like helping people set up Amazon accounts, helping people set up their Google Minis and things like that, where really there's possibilities out there and you just have to get creative with it. For a lot of us who are in this realm where, you know, we're constantly persecuted, we have to realize that creativity is our biggest friend in this endeavor. So honestly, if you can find something and you can advertise yourself on social media in one way, then definitely run with it. The other part too is there are a lot of ways for you to be able to set up businesses. I know a lot of sole proprietorships that use Venmo as a means of payment. I know some that use Square. So there are alternatives and there are ways. And I'm excited to see how Chica Snack sets up their website, because, you know, it's one of those where there's so many possibilities. And at the same time, we shouldn't let our status be a hindrance.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kevin. Any last thoughts from the audience, from Deymi, Maria, Kevin, anybody else who wants to share some words of encouragement or tips or advice? Great. We're going to then end our workshop here today. Thanks again to Kevin, to Maria, to Deymi, to everybody who tuned in. As Kevin mentioned, we do have a recording of the first workshop that's on the entrepreneurship section of the Immigrant Services webpage, so you can go and find the first installment of this two-part series there. And please watch out for additional resources and more updates when it comes to entrepreneurship workshops and entrepreneurship development. So more will be coming on that front. And with that, we are going to end recording here in a second.